Hi. I made something new today and I wanted to share that. But not only the thing that I made, but also why I got there, the way I got there. And most importantly, some of the things that I learned from making it. So, what I made today was, I began with another model of the tetrahelix, which is just what the name suggests. It's a helix of 4 eyes that always share their eyes, right? And even though it's very wobbly and spirally, you can look through the thing and you can in fact go straight through that helix here, like so. So this is a beautiful kind of structure, and I was thinking about making 2 of them to see how they fit together, because I remembered that Bucky wrote about how you could have 2 or 3 of them, I think, passing together. So I wanted to make that for a while, and at least I got 2 of these now. And yeah, I made one left-sided and one right-sided, or left-handed and right-handed, because I somehow remembered that to be the way, but it turned out they had to be both the same direction so that they would actually fit together like so. Okay, but looking for some more information on the handedness of these helixes, I came across, as I often do, I go into the index of synergetics, you can find it online, synergetics info, and I looked for the word tetrahelix, and that got me to a little part around the number 1055, which is concerning the 20-foldness of amino acid system indestructibility. And the following paragraphs are on the return to the shell of homogenized contents of an egg. And I did not know that, but apparently you can blow out the inner parts of a chicken egg or something like that. Blow that out and mix up the contents and put them back in, and the embryo will recompose itself and continue as if not disturbed, even after a couple of prior development. Anyways, that is just I'm getting, synergetics is a complete rabbit hole. You always fall down deeper and deeper into it. But he was looking at the number 20, which I'd like to call 1008. And he looked into a few different appearances or occurrences of that number within nature, chemistry, and synergetics, and looked into the amino acid 20ness and the icosahedral 20ness, because the 20i or dozeneight has 20 eyes. There is a 20 there, right? The magic number 20ness concerning the atomic element isotopes, the vector equilibrium 20ness, because the vector equilibrium, or mother of all spheres, has a volume of 20 tetras, 20 tetravolumes. Actually 8 tetras and 6 half octaves, which is a dozeneight altogether. Right, then 20ness and mass ratio of electron and neutron, and 20ness of maximum limit non-nuclear tetrahedron. What? The 20ness of maximum limit non-nuclear tetrahedron. There is another 20ness, oh, and this is 1055.07. There is another 20ness that seems highly relevant, and that is the 20ness of spherical atoms composing the largest single-shell tetrahedron that can be closest packingly assembled without a nucleus of its own, which 20-sphered atom tetrahedron has the new potential nucleus to be crowned when further layers are added. This tetrahedron of 20 occupies each of the 8 triangular phase regions of the outermost shell of the highest frequency vector equilibrium, which is inherently nuclear. That is, it contains only one interior closest packed sphere. This is its exact volumetric center. Right? So, yeah, that was a lot within very little, but what it refers to is the third frequency of the Foureyes. So, the first frequency tetra, right? Foureyes, 4 spheres, 1 sitting on top of 3, and as the colors show here, you can see it's also kind of like having 2 triangles like these two, which are 6 connections, right? And some you open them up and bring them together like this, and you form the Foureyes. So the same material that you would use for 2 separate triangles gives you 4 triangles when you put it together like this. That is synergy. Bringing things together generates much more than you anticipate. Now the second frequency of your Foureyes looks like so. So you got, let me fix this. You have got 10 spheres now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 in the lowest layer. It doesn't matter which direction you look at because it's symmetrical in 4 directions. You see it has 1, 2, 3, and 4 smaller Foureyes that make this by sitting together just as the 4 spheres here, right? So there's a bit of a fractal thing happening. And between them, just as between the 4 spheres, there is an empty space, an empty volume, which is that 8eye hiding there at the heart of it. Right? So the 8eye has a volume of 4 eyes. So this thing in total has a volume of 8. 4 of the tiny tetras, and 1 8eye, which gives you 4 together, that's 8. Alright, so from here, the next frequency is what I made today, which I'm so happy about. It's not the first time I made it, but the first time I made it in a scale that is perfect for fingering around with it, because I can put my fingers in there, but it's not as big as the other one that I made of straws that is up there. But yeah, this is the next higher frequency. This is a 3 frequency, so you have 1, 2, 3 intervals between 1, 2, 3, 4 spheres along one edge, right? So if you drop you drop spheres into a 4-eye container, they will come together like this, and you have the same 10 spheres that you had one layer before, plus another. How many do you have in one of these faces? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10 plus 10, which is 1008. So now we have 1008 spheres, or as Bucky said, 20 spheres. This is really cool. I mean, of course, you can continue adding spheres, but this is a very special situation that with this one. As Bucky said, it's the biggest one that doesn't have a nucleus in its heart. And yeah, why? So what happens is we have the same 10 as we had before sitting on another 10, right? So we have now, if we account for the interior of this thing, the easiest thing is to go, well, the frequency is 3, so 3 times 3 times 3 gives you a volume of 27 or twodozenthree. But we can say something about the quality of that volume because it's not uniform. But we can see more of that fractal nature of the isotropic vector matrix, which did this. Some more of that fractal nature showing up here, because we can see that these 10 tiny tetras that we have within this one are sitting on top one another, just as the 10 spheres did in this one. Right, so you have 1 on the top, 3 on the next layer, and then on the next layer there's 6. So you have 1, 3, and then 6 on the lowest layer. So that is a volume of 10 tetras. So between those, just as we had 1 8-eye between these 4, now we have 4 8-eyes between these 10 tetras. Right, so I can put my fingers in them like so, and there's 4 of them. Or I have a model that I made a while ago only showing those 4. And you see they sit on one another just like the 4 Foureyes did one layer before, and before that 4 spheres were sitting on top one another. Right, so now we have that shift, and we can see that inside of the big tetra there's a tetra made of 4 octaves. Cool, and between those there's something very special, which is a negative tetra. So I suppose I could show another model. Well, here in this case with the vector equilibrium, you have a 0, you have the nucleus here, and you have a positive and a negative 4i going off from that in both directions. Right? And actually, since there's 8 of them, there's 4 directions. Same 4 directions that space-time always has. Here we have a nucleus, right, the 0. We have 4 planes of space-time intersecting in the center. And if we we move out of that plane in any direction, then we open up a tetra. Alright, but if we take this thing, we halve it like this. This looks the same. If I take this apart and put it together the other way around, we have one of these. And there is no sphere in the center. There's no nucleus within this. This has a void in the center, an octa actually. Same octa as you have in here, because you see how this is if this was only positive, so to speak, then you have positive and negative again, right? One of them is pointing up and the other one is pointing down. And you can see how in any of the 4 directions of space-time you have this thing going from a sphere here through 3 this way, and then 3 that way, and then the next sphere here. So there's 1, 2, 3 layers, and then there's another point, another sphere in the same line. And if we now go back to our model of that 3 frequency Foureye here, then what we have in the center of it is the first incarnation of the negative direction of the IVM. So there's like, you see this one here on the top, right? And then there's the 8eye here, and on the bottom of that there's that void between the 4 8eyes sitting there, and that void is a negative tetra. So that is cool. You got that another layer of fractals, right? Because we had already how the tiny tetras in here that are in the same direction as the big one are expressing the same relationship as the 10 spheres did in the layer before. So now we shift that into the centers of these, and in the same way the 8eyes in between that give you the first frequency spheres of the tetra, 4 of those, and in the heart of that there's the first occurrence of the next layer of that fractals, because you have one sphere, one tiny tetra that is going the other way around. And I find that absolutely incredible to find that expressed within this in such a way, because you can really see 3, well, is that 3? We have the IVM at the sphere centers, which are the vertices here. It's one layer. Then we have the IVM centered on the Foureyes in there, the tiny ones. That's the second layer, or level, fractal level. Then we have the same pattern focused, centered in on the 8eyes in there, one frequency higher, or lower actually. And we have the same pattern also within the negative tetras, beginning to show up in this one, because now we have that tiny tetra in the center. And why is this cool? Because in the next expression, the next level of the IVM, you actually have this at the heart of the tetra, so there would be a big tetra, like, I guess you can sort of simulate it like this, right? So the 4th frequency, you see how there's 1, 2, 3, 4 vectors on the top, 5 spheres along the edge, and in the center of that thing, now the fractals happen again, because now you have these 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4 2 frequency tetras joining around a 2 frequency 8eyes in the center, and that actually contains our friend the vector equilibrium. Like this, at the heart of that. So you see how suddenly in that layer, which I don't have a model yet, the fourth frequency of the Foureyes, you begin again to center the fractals on the spheres that we began with. So we go full circle. And after that, I suppose, you would again have a tetra, tiny tetra in the center, then an octa, and then negative tetra, and then a sphere again. Right? But this is all contained in this one already, up to the level of before we get back to having a sphere in the center again. And yeah, we can now qualify some of the interior of this. We can say, okay, there's 10 tiny tetras, that is a volume of 10. Then there is 4 octas, that is a volume of 4 times 4 is a dozenfour, or 16. 10 plus a dozenfour is 2002, which is 26. And the negative thing in the center, so one more, so that is 2003, which is 27, which is 3 times 3 times 3. Alright, so we can say a lot about the quality of this volume inside. Another thing that is awesome about this is the number of connections between the spheres. The number of vectors in this is actually easy to gain because you need to only take the number of tiny tetras and multiply that by 6, because there's always 6 vectors in here, and it's actually like they are individual tetras. So there's a unit of 6 and a unit of 6, and there's 10 times 6, which is 5dozen. 60, which is also the same number of vectors as you have in the 2-frequency theta. But now we have it in the 3-frequency Foureyes. You have those beautiful hexagons filled here, which are actually half of this cut open. Gives you those hexagons. So these vertices here, the outermost vertices of the center Foureyes, are the centers, possible centers of vector equilibriums. They're cut open. And lastly, I'm running out of space on my computer. Last thing is the number, the surface area is also really nice, because you got, if you have one eye here, if you have a triangle with 3 sub-triangles here, it's 3 times 3 is 9 for one eye, times 4 is 3dozen. So this has 3dozen eyes on the outside, which is 36. So you got 3dozen eyes, you got 5dozen vectors, you got 1,008 spheres, which actually look like that. I also made that model today, so just to compare those two, have them together. There is 10 tiny tetras, 4 eighteyes, and 1 negative tetra. All of that within one thing, and I'm very happy I got it with me now, and thank you for your attention and your interest, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.